notes, along with some thoughts from Logan. Here's Chris.
Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation. Tonight, we struggle with what and who to believe on several major concerns. Now, look, I don't much care about people choosing to lionize the CEO assassin on social media. Big Pharma is real. Healthcare hardship is real. But there is no real movement to kill them all. I wonder how many of these assassin sympathizers are even paying for their own health care and not on their parents' plans, thanks to the ACA that allows you to keep your kids on until 26. But the reality is, a majority of us in this country are very worried about the rising costs and seemingly shrinking services from the healthcare system. So tonight, we have an insider account, not about how Luigi's doing in jail, but about the healthcare system from the inside, who can tell us what is worthy of a movement to change. Similarly, I am slow on civil allegations against anyone, let alone deep pocket stars. But when men come forward with recent reports of being drugged and raped, that's unusual enough to warrant closer scrutiny. So tonight we have a lawyer with the latest claims against Diddy that are very different than what we've heard before. But I want to start tonight with what's probably the biggest head scratcher going. The government basically says all the reports from New Jersey about odd, numerous, and even giant-sized drones cannot be corroborated or have been corroborated and are just regular manned aircraft. Here's the Pentagon spokesperson.
How can you credibly tell people that there is no public safety threat, there's no national security threat, that there's no reason to believe that a foreign government is involved?
Because the analysis thus far in an investigation that is ongoing has not revealed any national security or malicious intent or criminal activity. And we've looked at the imagery. We can't corroborate some of the reported sightings through our own expert analysis using sophisticated detection techniques, but that doesn't mean that, we're putting our pen down here this afternoon and calling it a day. We're going to keep at this.
I don't know. DHS says it appears that many of the reported sightings are actually manned aircraft operating lawfully. So here's the thing. All these accounts are wrong. All the videos are fake. Does that make sense? Now, look, I believe in trust but verify when it comes to government. I'm not a cynic, all right? But you got to help me with this. I get that there's a lot of fakery on social media. Believe me, I get ads of me selling things all the time that I've never even heard of. There are fake people, there's fake accounts, there's fake information, there's fake video, there's fake numbers of views and followers. I get it. But I want to show you something from my producer, Rose, from her home in Jersey, okay? There is nothing fake about her or her observations for over a decade. She just shot this. That's her son. Tell that kid to shut up. No, I'm kidding. Watch this. It's not a chopper, okay? It's not a chopper, as Arnold would say. Get to the chopper. It's not a chopper. There are 3 of these things, and they get closer and closer, and they don't even have navigation lights. When you see a red and a green light, I don't know if you're a boater or if you ever looked at an airplane, but they have the same protocol of red on the left, green on the right. That's a regular commercial vehicle. That's not what these have. So it's not just 1, it's 3. It's right over our house. They're not helicopters or airplanes. Now, I'm not saying they're aliens or Iran, but this is why people feed into conspiracies about government lies, because this is from my producer tonight. How can this be what they say it is? Joining us now, New Jersey state lawmaker who vehemently disagrees with the government's position, and Mr. Mike Fraietta, okay, drone pilot, owns it, you can drink, owns a security company, works to detect drone activity and protect against attacks. New Jersey State Rep Brian Bergen. Brian, thank you very much for being with us. Let me start with you. Again, I'm not a cynic. I'm not saying that the government is lying to us, but you've been around some of these briefings. Do you accept their findings?
Well, I don't believe anything that the spokesperson for the Pentagon said. I think he's an idiot, honestly, because down here on the ground, what we're seeing is like what your producer saw. I've seen these things with my own 2 eyes. And I was at a briefing with the colonel for the state police where he was briefing 50 lawmakers, and he said one of their state police helicopters was hovering above a 6-foot large drone, and that he had that helicopter land because he feared the drone may do something erratic and hit the helicopter. So, I mean, if the colonel from the state police and a state assemblyman who was a former attack helicopter pilot for the Army are not good enough proof for this guy at the Pentagon, then he can do all the analysis he wants. But I think he's a fool.
Now, Bergen, you flew Apaches, right?
I did, yeah.
First of all, thank you for your service. But so you know what a helicopter looks like, right?
I do. I do.
When you see the nav lights, you agree with my novice interpretation as just a regular boat captain that you see a green and a red light. Okay, now we're in the world of the recognizable. But with the videos that you've seen, even from my producer tonight, do those look like helicopters to you?
No, they don't look like helicopters. And the stuff that I've personally seen have not been helicopters. They've been in tight formations, multiple of them. It's obvious that they're not helicopters, honestly. I mean, it's really ridiculous for people to believe there are. Now, does that mean that there's not a lot of sightings from people who are reporting helicopters or aircraft? Of course there are. Right. Of course there are. But when you have a colonel from the state police telling you one of his aircraft is hovering above it, and you got this guy from the Pentagon saying there's no proof, I mean, something doesn't add up here. All
right, so I'm going to bring in Mike Fraietta. Listen to him, Rep, and if there's anything you want to say, you just chime right in. Yep. First of all, it's good to have you.
Thank you, sir.
So you're smiling through some of this as I'm saying it. What do you think is going on here? Do you think that they're testing things and that this is about government agencies who just always deny what they're doing?
It's always important to know if it's a friend or foe, no matter what kind of drone you're talking about. You want to be able to detect and know that. In this case, is it friend or foe? Now, you think about, I grew up in New Jersey. I'm getting 1,000 texts from everybody that lives in the area. McGuire Air Force Base is right there. If you're following closely what's happening coming out of Syria, going into Gaza and in Ukraine, it's a lot of warfare, drone warfare. Last night, we saw a Ukraine drone take out a Russian drone. This is very imminent on American government mind in terms of their defense. And so there could be a lot of testing going on there, and they don't want to tip their hat and put American lives at risk overseas by telling them what we're building over here for there.
So how do you explain the explanation of their manned aircraft or nothing, and nothing over any restricted airspace?
I'm not saying that at all. I think a lot of personal drones are out there. A lot of people are saying, hey, this is the time to go up and see what's happening out there. I know I wanted to have my drone and go out there. So I think there's a lot of those drones that are out there. Probably what your producer saw are personal people with their drones flying about.
But some of them.
Yeah, but can I say something?
Yeah, go
ahead,
Rep.
Would you mind, Chris?
Please.
An individual is not going to be able to put a 6-foot large drone up into the sky. I mean, I went to buy one to help me cast bait out further at the shore, and it cost $2,000.
Sure.
I mean, how are you going to get something that's 6 foot wide? Yeah,
you're one of those, Bergen. I got to tell you, I'm not a fan of you guys. All right, I don't like you flying your baits and dropping them next to my boat. You're on the shore, and all of a sudden you think you don't need a boat. You're one of those guys. I don't want to hear it, Rep.
Well,
I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Those are class 3. Yeah, class 1 and 2 are the ones that you can buy in the store. And these are clearly the 6-foot ones are obviously bigger. They're commercial, military grade that you cannot get in the store. So those are not.
So the shorthand term for these is some big ass drones that you cannot buy commercially. Sure. Right, so what is that thing that we're looking at right now? That's not a helicopter, and that's not a Radio Shack drone. I don't even know if there is Radio Shack anymore. Yep. But so what is that thing?
It's a drone, right? And this is what the American people need to consider. Even if this is a friend or a foe, if we don't know, we're seeing houses getting robbed in Los Angeles, in Miami, in Maryland. They're using drones to case out the houses. And then during the robbery, they're using it as a lookout. Are the police coming? Are the people coming back home? So people need to be diligent on our drones above us, and are they friends or foes? And I think this is a wake-up call to America. Our water supply, our electric stations, municipalities need to treat this as a serious threat. Clean water, affordable housing, drone detection is imminent for us to protect against these. Whether these ones or not we need to really think about this long term, because it's not an if but when the next terrorist attack is going to be by a drone.
Now, well, I hope not.
Right, and Chris,
go ahead, Rep.
Chris, if you remember back, Langley had a whole bunch of drones come. It was a couple of years ago or something like that, and they came through and they were there for a long period of time, a couple of weeks, and then they were gone forever. So what's important here is we're seeing the same exact thing happen again. There needs to be a sense of urgency to figure out what the hell is going on before it stops here and then moves somewhere else and we miss the opportunity.
Yeah.
That's what frustrates me so much right now. I mean, the governor has the entire National Guard at his disposal. He has all the tools and resources available to him. If they want to get serious, they have the ability to find these drones. I mean, really, the state police helicopter was hovering above one. Why don't you just follow the thing to where it lands? I mean, come on.
Right.
This is like amateur hour.
Well, you know what is fueling also, which is, more for you, Rep, than it is for Mike. When people lose confidence in the answer they're getting, they come up with their own. And so now you have people, and I'm not saying it's justified, but it is justified not by the threat, but by the lack of transparency. They're now afraid. And they are now, and I'm not saying they're justifiably afraid, Representative Bergen, but what do you say to people who are saying the answers don't make sense? I'm seeing what I'm seeing, so now I don't trust you, and now I'm worried.
Yeah, well, before I went to that briefing I went to yesterday, I was doing everything I could to pacify people and just say, look, there's probably a logical explanation. It's FedEx or UPS or Amazon testing something, or it's a insurance company flying and checking out your roof for insurance purposes. But now after hearing that briefing and just the lack of knowledge and complete ineptitude by people trying to figure this out, I'm actually legitimately concerned for the safety of the citizens. And I can't tell them not to be concerned, because I'd be lying to them, and I'm not going to do that.
And what do you say about the NOTAMs, the notice to air missions that went out the last few weeks?
What is that?
So those are notice to air missions. So all as drone pilots and pilots of anybody who is an FAA certified pilot gets notices of there's going to be a mission. And so, don't fly in this zone for drone pilots. And those went out in Central Jersey the last few weeks as classified.
I'm not familiar with those. So, hell, you think that's something they might tell us when I go to a briefing by the state police and the Department of Homeland Security?
I don't think there's cohesion between those departments, right? So we've trained with the Coast Guard, with the Air Force, with Space Force on drone vulnerability risk assessment, because every department right now is preparing for that. They're doing drone vulnerability risk assessments. Every municipality needs to do one. And they're not collectively cohesion. It's once in a while they get together. Someone from the agency might know someone else, but there's not a coordinated communication at all, and I think that's a big problem that everyone's having right now.
Yeah, so I think if you have these NOTAMs, we should hopefully I can get your contact information and we can get them from you.
You got it, right?
I mean, all these aircraft are flying. They're flying in Class G airspace, uncontrolled airspace anyway, all around up here in North Jersey. So I don't really think that they're probably receiving the NOTAMs. And quite frankly, these people flying them, I'm sure, aren't checking NOTAMs. It seems like they're not good people. Because if it was somebody doing the right thing, let's say it was FedEx testing delivery drones. By now, it's all over the news. Everybody knows, everybody's concerned and pissed off. You would think someone would say something, but no. So it gets me more and more nervous every day.
Well, it's also happening in California, too. We saw reports last night that there's more showings in California. And you're right. And as Amazon and Walmart, we're seeing in Phoenix, they got the green light to deliver goods through Amazon in Phoenix. We're going to see these in the sky. It's going to be like white noise. So you got to think of that 100 to 400 feet. That is the FAA drone zone. Yep. They're going to be there. It's going to be like airplanes. They're going to be going by. So Americans, we have to stay diligent to say, hey, what's a friend or foe? Because a lot more friends are coming. We're finding the girl that was sleepwalking and lost in the woods, lost pets. They're being found by drones. People getting defibrillators, pills sent to them immediately. There's all these great uses of drones. They're coming. But with that comes the nefarious side as well. So we have to stay prepared. And
you got to regulate it because what happens is all of a sudden an Amazon box hits me on the head, because the drone malfunctions, and then all of a sudden everybody pretends like it's new when it was something to prepare for.
The FAA is doing it responsibly. They are making sure every commercial has a Part 107 drone pilot's license. You have to. It's almost like being an airline pilot. You have to get that license. So they are being careful with it, but they are hitting the green light.
Listen, Rep.
Yeah, but I think at this point
I'll get you the information from Mike. I'll hook you guys up so you can see what he's talking about. These NOTAMs, you'll get along because he speaks that acronym language that you military guys love. But you're going to need a platform if you want to stay on this, because the government posture is obviously, we just told you there's nothing to worry about. Now shut up. Now that's where it usually ends for them. I don't think that's a good place to let it end for you or your constituents.
No, you're absolutely right. And also one thing that's important for the good drone operators and the future of the drone industry, we don't need a whole bunch of lawmakers making stupid laws now because they're freaked out. Right. We need just to figure out what these bad actors are doing, deal with them, and then make really good, conscious policy for drones moving forward that doesn't disrupt, future potential industry that's beneficial for the world, quite frankly.
People keep joking with me because, as I'm about to say to you, Rep, I'm going to say you got an open invitation. Whenever you want to come on to talk about this, just call me up and that's what the show's for. I keep offering it to players in situations because that's what NewsNation was built to do, is, to break through the noise of everybody just seeking advantage. Let's talk about what matters. You're in a position of power. Let us know what you're hearing and what you're not hearing. And I mean, you got the benefit. I mean, you're a veteran who flew helicopters. I mean, you're the perfect guy to be an agent of change on this. Thanks. So you've got an open opportunity. Brian Bergen, if I don't speak to you before, Merry Christmas. Mike Frietta, thank you very much. I'm going to need you going forward. I don't even understand half of what you just said. So as they're giving us explanations, I'll need you to decode it.
As well.
So thank you for
your service, Brian.
And we're not demonizing drones. I get that they're part of the future. You just can't tell us we're not seeing what we're seeing, 4 minutes and 5 seconds. When we come up, now, next topic, okay? There is a backlash against the healthcare industry, but not the right one. The idea that, we don't care that Brian Thompson's kids don't have a father because other people have suffered. That doesn't work in America. What does work is a conversation that motivates the realities inside these companies that do demand outrage. I have a doctor. They have been exposing the inner workings of companies for decades. It's not just the patients that get worked. The providers do also, including the doctors. You need to hear what he knows. Next. More than 60 grand has been donated to the legal defense fund of the man charged with assassinating the CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson. Newsflash, the guy's rich. And guess where his family made the money? Healthcare. Now, this is a perverse sense of affinity, right? This is, we support him because we're against the healthcare industry. Okay, great, but this guy's not Robin Hood. Okay, he's got the rich part down. He's just not doing anything for anybody except his own bloodlust. You want to change the system? You got to understand what's happening in that system. You're not going to kill your way out of it. So let's continue the conversation on what the reality is and what can actually be exposed and how can it be changed, all right? That brings us to our guest, Dr. Don Berwick, co-founder of the Institute for Healthcare Improvement. You want to donate money? Donate money to the Institute. They're doing the work. He's a former administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services under Obama. Remember, Dr. Oz may get that position under President-elect Trump in this upcoming administration. Dr. Don, thank you very much for being with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Chris.
My producer, Isabel, just came out here getting me ready for this and was like, hey, don't forget, 2 of the top 3 lobby amounts in government are basically healthcare. Big Pharma and the insurance companies just behind tech. Over 150 plus them, $211 million last year to Congress. How big a part of the equation of not changing what needs to be changed is money to the people in power?
Chris, let me just rewind for a second to the comments you made about this horrible murder, this act of violence. Let me not be misunderstood at all. It's absolutely unacceptable, has no place in our country, and not the way to raise the issues that we're going to be talking about. The answer to your question is that the insurance industry in our healthcare system is massive political momentum, enormous deep pockets to be able to reach the public with messages that I just don't think are right. We have established a system of payment in this country that creates these gigantic corporations and allows them to basically seize control of a healthcare system that I think ought to belong to the public.
Give me a little inside scoop on something for a second from your understanding. Brian Thompson was the head of United Healthcare, okay? The biggest, has a lot of people come against it. If you look online, you'll see there are lots of grievances. Thompson, just ironically, was not known as a major malefactor. He was known as a guy who worked with advocacy groups, who was mindful of how the policies were perceived. I mean, in a business where you definitely have people who put profits above people, that was his job as CEO, and I don't like it, but he was not known as a bad guy. Like, if you were going to pick someone to target, this isn't the guy.
Absolutely. He seemed to be working towards some real reforms that are needed in the healthcare financing and insurance industry. But the industry overall engages in behaviors that have troubled people for a long time, created immense levels of debt in this country. 110 million people are in medical debt. There's no country on earth that has anything like that. before them, and they continue to engage in profit-oriented behaviors, denying care when it's needed, or delaying approvals, or shifting costs to the beneficiaries who thought they had coverage. So there's a whole bunch of dysfunctional and very costly activities going on in that industry. I've come to wonder whether the insurance industry in this country, the healthcare insurance industry, actually adds much value at all. We pay it a ton, at least 15% of the cost of our system just go to the insurance companies for all the transactions they engage in. And I'm not sure where the value is there.
What do you think, Don, as we start talking to lawmakers, as the new Congress is assembled and they start telling us what their priorities are and we start testing power, what do you believe are the top 3 things that we should be pushing the people in power to address about this business?
Well, let me first say that scholars and people who've been working on healthcare reform, for a decade have laid out an agenda of needed changes, including the Medicare Payment Advisory Commission, which is this advisor to Congress. So there's plenty of answers to your question. For me personally, there are 2 or 3 things I think we need to do. I'm very committed to maintaining Medicare as the mainstay for coverage in this country and expanding it. To do that, we're going to have to bring under control the part of Medicare in which the federal government, instead of paying the doctor, pays insurance companies to pay the doctor. That's called Medicare Advantage. It's a transfer of public funds to private insurance. It is extremely costly. The government agency that oversees this says that about $80 billion a year of excess payment go to the health plans that would not have been spent if we had been using the public insurance system. So my number one priority right now would be to get Medicare Advantage back under control. It is hemorrhaging money.
What's their big pushback on Medicare Advantage about why they do it that way?
They claim they give better care. They can organize it more, make selections about which doctors you can see that assure you quality. None of the data support that assertion. The alternative to Medicare Advantage is called traditional Medicare. It's the Medicare that we originally started with, the Medicare I use. And there, I can go anywhere I want. I don't cede choice to the insurance company. And I don't pay the extra cost as a taxpayer for that $80 billion that gets transferred to Medicare Advantage. That'd be top of my list. And the other part is making Medicare itself better. The Affordable Care Act did a lot to improve Medicare, but we have more ahead. There's still too much out-of-pocket costs to individuals.
I have another one. I think that it can't be that the entity that gets to deny the claim gets to adjudicate the appeal to the claim.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to have a new system. And I know everybody wants less footprint, not more. But in this one case, I think it's different. You can't have the companies deciding the appeals of the denials. There has to be some panel that people can go to, as they can in the rest of our confrontational judicial system. This is the only place that gets an out.
Yeah, an independent function in which people who don't have a stake in the answer make wise choices about what gets covered.
How'd that happen? How did they get that power?
Money speaks in this country. Citizens United and the ability to lobby Congress and use the money is, I think, it's a root cause. I can't overstate the power that this part of the healthcare system has on Capitol Hill and indeed in the White House. I think that it's an unfair game. Yeah. The insurance companies in about 2 years ago or 3 years ago bought a Super Bowl ad to convince the public that they should be buying Medicare Advantage. Well, that's deep pockets. And the government, the alternative, the truly public system, Medicare, traditional Medicare, doesn't have that option. You're just very unfair.
I'm with you. And it's interesting. We've got a guy coming into office as president who is the most outspoken disruptor we've had in a generation. He never mentions the health insurance companies. That tells you how important they are. His mandate is to drain the swamp. These are the biggest alligators. Dr. Don Berwick, I will call on you again as they start telling us what they're going to do so that I have a pro telling me whether it's the right thing or not. Thank you very much.
Hope you will.
All right, I'll do it. Take care. 4 minutes and 30 seconds coming up. Look, I haven't been covering all the lawsuits that have come out about Diddy. Why? Because civil allegations, some of them are real, some of them aren't, especially when they start coming in by the dozens when somebody's advertising for them. But today, 3 suits were filed by men. You know how rare it is for men to say they were drugged and raped? 3 of them say that's exactly what Diddy Combs did. The lawyer representing them refused to take more than 60 other cases. But he says these 3 are legit. Why? He makes his case to you next. I've read about more than 100 suits filed against Sean Diddy Combs. People are coming out all over the place. I'm not judging them one way or the other, but I'm saying an allegation is not a conviction, okay? But today, these 3 lawsuits filed by men, and I'm not saying that I favor men over women. I'm saying it's just very rare for men to come forward and discuss potential sexual assault, all right? To say that they were drugged and raped by Combs. The lawyer representing them says he turned down dozens of other claims. Why? He didn't know that they were winners. So why these cases? All right, lawsuit number 1. Man claims he went to a party at Diddy's home in the Hamptons 2020. Says he was given a drink, began to fade in and out, 1 drink. And Diddy and his associates sodomized him and took turns raping him. Lawsuit number 2. Man says he met Diddy 2019 at a nightclub, invited back to his hotel. Diddy gave him a drink. Guy says it made him sick. Diddy told him to lie down and said to others, he's ready to party. When he woke up, the man said he was lying naked on his stomach. Diddy was sodomizing him, and a man and woman were recording it. Next morning, one of Diddy's associates gave him $2,500 cash on behalf of Diddy. Lawsuit number 3. Man who worked for Diddy says in 2020 he went to his hotel room for a meeting. Diddy made him a drink, made him very tired. Diddy told him to take a nap. When he woke up, Diddy was sodomizing him. When he tried to resist, Diddy told him he was almost done. Afterwards, Diddy told him he was going to the police. His going to the police would make him look like an idiot because he'd never be able to substantiate his claims. He also says Diddy's entourage called and threatened him to stay quiet. Diddy's attorneys responded to the 3 lawsuits. These complaints are full of lies. We're going to prove them false and seek sanctions against every unethical lawyer who filed fictional claims against him. The attorney for these 3 that I just detailed is Thomas Gifford, and he joins me now. Counsel, thank you very much.
Nice to meet you, Chris. Nice to see you again.
You've been doing this a long time.
Yep.
I know you by reputation.
Correct.
You are not known as a shyster lawyer who's chasing a check.
No.
First, give us some context. How many cases have you seen in your life of allegations of men saying that they were drugged and raped?
Very few. I have seen less than 10. But here's a fact. 9% of all rapes in the United States of America are men. 9%.
So it's low. And that's only what we know about because, again, culturally, nobody wants to come forward. Women don't want to be shamed by the process. Right. Men have even additional layers of some perceived shame. So why did you believe in these cases, and why didn't you believe in others that you were presented with?
Well, the thing with a abuser, a sexual abuser, is they follow a pattern. They fall to type, and you become very clear on what that pattern is, particularly a serial sexual abuser. And these cases were all identical in the facts, identical in the story. It was beginning, middle, conclusion.
They know each other?
Boom. None of them knew each other.
Did you have them meet?
No.
Did you have them coordinate stories?
No.
Do you think they had any contact with each other before they came to you?
Absolutely not.
And when you were talking to them, well, first, the ones that you didn't take, why not?
Stories didn't make sense. Stories didn't fit the pattern. Stories were not credible. I mean, this is my 30th year as a lawyer. I've tried over 100 cases. I can assess whether somebody's story is credible. And if I don't believe it, I'm not going to put my name on a pleading, sign it, and file it in court. I'm not doing that. And that's what I did with the 60-plus cases that I rejected.
And this is not really your area of expertise. If people look you up, celebrity lawsuits is not really where you make your bones. Why this?
Well, I have handled. I was involved in the Weinstein litigation. Right. I was involved in the Paducah litigation. I was involved in the Hayden litigation. Why did I do this? I do this because it's important. I think it's important for people to be heard, have their chance to get the power back. Because sexual abuse, sexual assault is about one thing: taking power, humiliating, demeaning a person and a victim. It has nothing to do with sex. And so I think it's important. I think it's important to get the word out. I think it's important for men to feel, hey, look, I can come out and be heard just like a woman could.
And the defense that, look, they knew what they were getting into. These are regrets. They went there, they partied, and now they see a pocket.
No, I don't think so. My client
was... Were they gay men?
One was bisexual, the other ones were not. And they were going there. The client was bisexual, worked for Diddy. Diddy owed him money for doing errands for him and being his step-and-fetch, for lack of a better word. And I think it was a power move. It was a clear power move because this guy had the nerve to come to him and say, you owe me money. And so Diddy said, come on to the Intercontinental Hotel. He gives him the drug, knocks him out, sodomizes him. And I won't use the term that my client used, but he said he tried to turn me into his B word. And I think it was a clear power move on each and every occasion. I think the ones that took place in the Park Hyatt, that wasn't partying. My client met him at a nightclub in the city here with a music producer. He didn't think he was getting into that. The man who was raped in the Hamptons, he thought he was going to a white party. Who wouldn't want to go to a white party? I would have gone to a white party back in the day. I wouldn't go now. But they went there innocently, and this is what happened to them.
I never went. I appreciate you very much. We will follow the cases through the duration.
All right. Nice to see you,
As
Chris.
things come out, you'll be welcome counsel to make the case as it's countered. Tom Gifford, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Right,
nice to
Christmas
see you. Thank you. Same to you.
Forward.
All right.
All right. Now, let's balance it out, okay? Mark Garagos, who, as you all know, is my lawyer, also represented Sean Combs in a separate matter to give us some perspective on this. He is wearing a sweatshirt from his podcast, Reasonable Doubt. It's good to have you, brother. What do you want people to know here about these types of cases? You do agree that these are rare types of allegations coming from men.
Well, yes. I mean, look, in my day job when I'm not doing Dusty a favor at night is that I defend the Menendez brothers. And I've talked endlessly about the fact in the last 30 years that the culture has evolved and about men on men. But my takeaway from this lawyer's interview that you just did may be completely different. Part of the problem with where we are is that you do not have an independent way to assess this because of the time that elapsed, and we're in the 1-800-DIDDY era. And what do I mean by that? You just asked him, and it sounds like 60 some odd people came to this gentleman, 60. Think about that. And he took 3. The other 57 or so didn't pass the smell test. I give him props for turning down 57. I would just say, given what I know and what I've learned today and what, by the way, the press has said today in terms of just basic Googling of certain of the facts, it appears that maybe these 3 have issues like the other 57. And by the way, also today, we found out that, or at least I found out in doing a little Googling, that one of the other cases that was brought here, the gentleman who they shrouded in secrecy at our old network, CNN, and let him falsely accuse, and then he had a lawsuit and he's anonymous, guess what happened? The reporter from CNN Googled, and it turned out one of the salient facts that he had turned out was factually incorrect, couldn't have been, and he had to amend the complaint. This is really, we've reached a feeding frenzy.
Right. That's not one of these 3 cases, though.
In these 3 cases already, I've been told that if you go and Google some of the information that is alleged, you will see, and I'm not going to do the defense, I'm not representing him in the civil cases, the facts don't hang. The facts don't pan out. And I applaud him for turning down the other 57. He may wish that he had done these 3. We'll see.
Well, look, that's what litigation is about. We'll go forward with it. But as you know, you've been a very good guide to me about the 1-800 type of this litigation. I've never seen waves of cases come out as we've seen in Diddy, and that's why we're very careful. These types of allegations are more rare. I appreciate your perspective on them, Mark Garagos, as always, and I'll see you soon. Thank you very much. All right, 3 minutes and 45 seconds. We'll take a break. Look, Diddy is such candy for social media, okay? And you want to hear about that, the drones. I mean, how can you resist that? But you got to remember what matters. What about the hostages? There's a little bit of hype in the news. A lot of people aren't covering it, that maybe there'll be a deal now. But here's my problem. Why is it seen as Hamas stepping up to the plate when they're still not agreeing to return all the hostages? What are we to make of this new deal? A pro who's made these deals. Next. All the headlines say that Hamas stepped up and agreed to two major sticking points in a ceasefire deal with Israel. The first one is that they're going to allow the IDF to remain in Gaza temporarily when the fighting stops. Yeah, it's because they lost. Like, I don't know why that's a concession. The terror group also gave a list of 30 hostages, including U.S. citizens, that they would release in exchange for a large number of Palestinians and others being held by Israel. So, is this a good deal, and is there a reason to believe there will be a deal? Let's ask Aaron David Miller, Senior Fellow, Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, former State Department analyst and negotiator in both GOP and Democratic administrations. Good to see you, brother.
Chris, it's wonderful to be here with you.
Help me understand, am I being too hard to say I don't get how Hamas is agreeing when they're not agreeing to return all the hostages? I don't understand why that's not a precondition. What am I missing?
That was never a doable deal, Chris. That's the real problem. The hostages are the only card that Hamas has. Without them, the Israelis can continue to blast away, and Hamas's room to recover will be completely and utterly eliminated. This deal will give them an asymmetrical number of Palestinian prisoners, large numbers, I might add, who've either been charged, convicted, or accused of killing Israelis, proverbial blood on their hands. And it will also guarantee that the Israelis will open up the spigot and surge humanitarian assistance into Gaza. Plus, it's 60 days or 45 to 60 days. They clearly, having been hammered now, having most of their senior leadership, including Yahya Sinwar, the architect of the October 7 terror surge, eliminated by the Israelis, they need a break, they need a breather. And I think that's why what you see is a limited exchange. They're not going to surrender the 30 living male soldiers that they will continue to hold, and they'll bargain for some other concession from the Israelis. It's a sad, tragic situation.
One counter and then a political question. The counter is, why isn't it the case that if they were to give back all the hostages, they would then have a modicum of high ground that would put Israel on the back foot of, okay, you got your people back now. There is no more incentive for you to be allowed aggressive moves. You got your people back off.
Right, and here is where the politically incorrect analysis kicks in. I'm not sure the Prime Minister of Israel is prepared to pay the price that Hamas would demand for returning all of the hostages. For all, they're going to demand a withdrawal from Gaza and an asymmetrical, an even greater number of Palestinian prisoners. Netanyahu gains, Chris. I mean, it's sorry to say, in my judgment, count me biased, but he's the wrong leader at the wrong time in a critically important moment in Israel's history. I don't think Netanyahu wants a comprehensive deal because then the war essentially would have to end. And in fact, Hamas might emerge as a viable political factor in Gaza. They'll never rule Gaza again.
Right.
But they will succeed in intimidating and co-opting whatever governing authority presumes to rule there at some point.
Quickly, do you believe that there's any merit to the idea that this is happening now because Trump said, give them back before I get in there?
I think that's a part of it. I think Netanyahu would not, if Donald Trump had said to Ron Dermer, who conveyed this message to President Trump, I don't want this deal, I want it done, I want to be the redeemer of the hostages, Netanyahu would not do the deal. This deal is being done because Hamas is weak. The Israeli-Lebanese ceasefire has made them weaker. There's no cavalry on the way. And the Netanyahu government is willing, I think now, because Trump probably does want this mess, tragic mess, cleared away before his presidency begins.
Yeah, he does. He likes to call himself a wartime president like he did during COVID, but that's not what he wants to be a part of. He wants to be focused here. ADM, thank you very much. Blessings for the holidays, but I'll talk to you before then. Be well, brother.
Chris, take care.
All right. 4 minutes, 45 seconds. What do you got? What's on your mind? Let's get after it. 844-968-7720. Have your say. All right, who you got, Dusty?
Well, so full disclosure, we have a very small staff and a few people on the staff were not feeling well, so I sent them home mid-show. And then we decided we were going to take some calls. So this is going to be a little bit of a crapshoot because they were not well screened. So we're going to start with
Is that why Tom is screaming like he's the soup Nazi?
Yeah, because I normally get a sense of what people might ask you. So if they curse at you and tell you, shout all sorts of obscenities.
Tom sounds like a ticket agent at JFK on Christmas Eve.
All right, so we're going to start with someone that we actually, one of our regulars, Martine, because I think she's going to be nice to you. Martine, shoot.
Always a plus. What's your question?
Hey, Chris, of course I'm going to be nice to you. I would never say anything mean. But let me just say that in no way do I defend the insurance companies. But I haven't heard anybody mention how much fraud there really is also on the part of the patients or the people who apply for medical insurance or for various claims that they make, and how that undoubtedly must affect what's going on in the industry.
Absolutely. Absolutely, you are right. So why aren't I balancing the coverage that way? Because this is an inflection point where despite what this jackass did in assassinating this guy, who wasn't even really the man with the black hat that he thought he was, but despite that, I'm trying to use it to highlight something that matters, because I don't think the company should get cover in this moment either. Fraud, waste, and abuse is real, but it does not explain what they do in terms of denials and appeals and what they use and who they use for their expert panels and a lot of other devices that many other corporations may use, but they don't matter as much as health care, because literally it's a matter of life and death. That's why. Next.
Okay, one more, and who knows where this could go? Ron from Lynbrook, New York.
Well, I like your investment in the show, by the way, Dusty. What's your question, sir?
Yeah, Chris, what happens when these drones flying over open-end stadiums? Will people go into a panic when this happens? Because they're not allowed to do that, but they have no governance. And happy holidays.
Happy holiday. Merry Christmas to you. Look, I believe that when people don't trust, they are susceptible to being scammed and conspiracies and whatnot. And that's why I think you see people getting panicky as they're not getting explanations, which is why I find the government lack of transparency frustrating. So, no, I don't think that these are, some aliens or Iranians coming to take us out. And Iranians aren't the risk anyway. It's the regime, right? It's that theocratic Islamist regime, not Iranian people. But look, this is what happens. This is why you need transparency in government, because what's going to fill the vacuum? Conspiracy theories. All right. That's all the time we have tonight. Dan Abrams is going to pick up our coverage. There are major stories on our watch here at NewsNation, so he takes it right now.
All right, Chris. Dusty seemed to be very nervous about the possibility that maybe someone would be mean to you. Those are the best callers.
Yeah, to you.
To me.
Yeah,
and
to
to
you,
everybody.
they're the best callers.
It's the fun. It's the fun part.